A therapist asks a young woman what she thinks about before she falls asleep, and the woman responds that she wishes for world destruction. She shares that she's just tired of life and laughs at herself, acknowledging that this must sound amusing coming from a young person like herself. The therapist affirms that everyone has moments when they're tired of life, but the young woman, who we'll later know as Jo Iso, says that she's always feeling this way. She finds life to be repetitive and obvious, a constant effort towards some goal. Iso says that everyone knows that success is achieved by madly fighting for it, but everyone is too bothered to try. Iso shares that she told her boss the same thing, and he responded that she should just die if she's so tired of life. She laughs at how her boss monitored her teen angst, and she asserts that counseling should be done candidly over drinks. Then, Iso gets up to head to work and invites her therapist with a few coupons. Iso narrates an introduction to Itaewon, a hot spot within Yongsan in the city of Seoul, a place where you can see the world. This is our story of living these streets with our own values. 15 years ago, we see 3 high school boys kneel in the back of the classroom holding buckets of water above their head for playing hooky from their free study period. The teacher berates the delinquent students, saying that these future lowlifers will leech off of their parents when they grow up. In response, one student, Park Se-roi, dumps the bucket on himself. The students snicker, and Se-roi calmly asks the annoyed teacher if he should refill his bucket. He returns to his punishment position, and a classmate smiles in amusement. The classmate observed that he seemed like a nutjob, but he also lived righteously. He didn't have friends, but he never seemed lonely. She soon realized that she had a crush on Se-roi, but he was moving schools next week. She musters up the courage to approach Se-roi and offers chocolate with a letter to wish him luck on the police college qualification exam. But Se-roi doesn't accept the gift, saying that he doesn't like sweet things. Despite the rejection and her friend's annoyance with this nutjob, she still liked how he always did whatever he wanted. Se-roi gets off the bus at Pageant City and runs to catch his train. A beggar grabs a student, Osua, but she roughly shakes him off. As Se-roi catches the falling man, he hits his knee on the ground. He limps as he follows Sua and tells her to apologize to the man, but she refuses. She asks he thinks he's a good person and seems annoyed by his righteousness. At the police college qualification exam, Se-roi limps as he runs around the track. The judges notice his limp and note that he's the one who aced all of his physical tests. A slow runner catches up to Se-roi and tries to convince him to quit, but Se-roi refuses to come in last. He runs ahead, and the judges seem impressed. At the Jang-jae family headquarters, manager Park Sung-yeol greets Kang Min-young, and she insists that he drop the formalities. They talk like close friends about manager Park's move to Pageant and his son, Se-roi, who will be transferring to the same high school as the president's son. Min-young updates manager Park about the plans to terminate sponsorship to the orphanage because senior homes are a trendier issue. Manager Park says that the orphanage won't be able to feed the children without their sponsorship and argues that business is all about the people. But this was the president's decision, so manager Park chooses to acquiesce. Se-roi aces his physical exam and assures Dad, manager Park, that his knee is fine. Dad tells Se-roi that he must feel disappointed to leave his friends behind, but Se-roi says that he has no friends. Dad shares that the president's son attends Se-roi's new school but isn't pushy about them being close. He just wishes that Se-roi would be more sociable. Se-roi comments that his dad's wishes conflict with their family motto of living with conviction. Dad drives them to the Pageant orphanage to distribute food to the children, and Se-roi seems puzzled by the random visit. Dad greets a familiar face, Sua, and introduces her to Se-roi. They recognize each other, but Se-roi doesn't acknowledge her. Dad apologizes to Sua for the terminated sponsorship, but Sua doesn't blame him. She understands that it's a company decision that he needs to follow. He assures Sua that he'll visit often to cook for them, now that he lives in Pageant. Sua says that his son seems different than him, and Dad acknowledges that Se-roi is a bit aloof. She jokes that he's handsome, and Dad claims those genes. Sua joins Se-roi to hang laundry, and says that they'll be attending the same school. She tries to be cordial and explains that she wants to be friendly because he's manager Park's son. She's known him for about 5 years while he served as the representative from Jang-jae. Se-roi shakes out wet clothes at Sua, and she asks if he's still hung up on the train station incident. She calls him a snob for acting so righteous, and he likens his actions to Dad helping the orphanage. Sua takes offense to that comment and decides to give up on being friendly, leaving him to hang all the laundry. The next morning, Se-roi makes breakfast, and Dad compliments his cooking skills. Dad feels bad that he didn't buy the new school uniform in time for Se-roi's first day, but Se-roi doesn't mind. He tells Dad to focus on his first official day at Jang-jae headquarters. Then, Dad takes a sip of the soup and says that it tastes bland. Se-roi walks to the bus stop and keeps his distance when he notices Sua waiting at the stop. A car stops in front of her, and Jang Gun-won, on Bo-hyun, son of Jang-ga's president, offers her a ride. She rejects his offer because she's uncomfortable with him and takes the bus instead. Se-roi waits for the bus to leave and waits for the next bus to school. When Se-Roi enters his new homeroom, he meets eyes with Suwa, and they seem mutually annoyed. He awkwardly introduces himself, and at the teacher's prompt, he shares that he wants to become a police officer. The teacher points to the empty desk next to Suwa as his assigned seat. They sit in awkward silence until they're interrupted. Jang Jae Gunwon beats a classmate to the ground and spills milk on him. Before Se-Roi does anything, Suwa suggests that he stay silent and pick his battles. She advises him to ignore the commotion, especially since Manager Park works for Jang Jae. Se-Roi isn't convinced by this reasoning and steps in to stop the bullying. He grabs Gunwon's hand and asks if his title as a chaebol heir gives him permission to be a bully. Gunwon seems bothered by Se-Roi's accusation, but continues to bully the classmate. The rest of the class watches in silence. When Se-Roi demands that Gunwon cut out the abuse, Gunwon offers to share a school rule. The homeroom teacher returns to the classroom and instructs everyone to return to their seats. Se-Roi brings attention to the bullying, but the teacher ignores the incriminating scene. Gunwon leans in and says, "This school's rule. Jang Gunwon is the law." Gunwon smirks, and Se-Roi punches him in exasperation. The teacher runs to injured Gunwon on the ground, and stunned Suwa looks away in frustration. Oh, this can't be good. Manager Park proudly presents the Jang Jae sauces during his first day at headquarters, but he's asked to step out. At school, Se-Roi receives a beating from his teacher for punching Gunwon, who makes a fuss about his bloodied face. Then, the doors open, and the powerful Jang Jae CEO, President Jang Dae-hee, Yu Jae-myung, enters the room, followed by Manager Park. Everyone in the room assumes a position of submission to President Jang, and Manager Park can barely look up as he apologizes for Se-Roi's actions. Gunwon can't believe that Manager Park's son would dare to strike him, and President Jang scolds his son for his rude language. Even haughty Gunwon submits to his father's authority. President Jang asks the principal about Se-Roi's punishment, and it sounds unfairly severe: expulsion and legal charges. As a show of mercy and consideration for the long-term relationship with Manager Park, President Jang dismisses any police involvement. He also offers to save Se-Roi from expulsion, and Manager Park thanks him and promises that this won't happen again. But President Jang tells Se-Roi that he must also acknowledge his wrongdoing by getting on his knees to apologize to Gunwon. He offers this as the best deal to save face for his beaten son. Se-Roi says that his father taught him that one must accept punishment for any wrongdoing, but that one must also live with conviction. Se-Roi tells the truth about his bullied classmate and his teacher's tolerance of the bullying. He admits that he hit Gunwon because he wouldn't stop when asked. Se-Roi can accept punishment for his disruption in the classroom, but he won't apologize to Gunwon. "This is my conviction, my father's teaching, and how I wish to live my life." President Jang approaches Manager Park and asks for his opinion. Manager Park describes his son as a childish boy with no understanding of how the world works. Then, he adds that he's proud of his son and affirms his son's convictions and acceptance of punishment. President Jang's smile drops, and Se-Roi looks shocked. Unsettled by the response, President Jang warns Manager Park about his future at the company. Se-Roi tries to intervene and separate his father from his wrongdoings, but to no avail. Manager Park says that he'll quit, and he bows respectfully in gratitude for all his years serving the company. Over dinner, Dad tells Se-Roi that violence can never be justified and deserves punishment. Se-Roi asks why Dad quit when he hadn't done anything wrong, and Dad explains that he was acting on his convictions as a father. Now that Se-Roi isn't a student anymore, Dad pours him a glass of soju and teaches him how to drink with elders. After Se-Roi takes his first drink, Dad asks him how the soju tastes, and Se-Roi responds that it tastes sweet. Dad laughs and says that the sweet taste means that the day left an impression. Se-Roi questions if Dad should give him alcohol even though he's underage, and Dad justifies that alcohol should be taught by the father. Dad drinks his soju and says that his drink also tastes sweet. As Dad pours them another glass, Se-Roi apologizes, his voice trembling as he's on the verge of tears. Dad assures Se-Roi that they'll cherish this memory later. Se-Roi can take the GED, and Dad has enough money to set up his own restaurant. Dad admits that he wasn't able to live by their family motto, and he had hoped that Se-Roi could live more freely. Seeing his hopes manifest today made him proud of Se-Roi. Dad and Se-Roi both tearfully drink another glass of soju. Gunwon drives his new car onto school grounds, and his classmates predict that the teachers will just let him do what he wants, as always. Suwa checks the announcement for the Gwangjin University early admission, and she sees the bullied classmates staring at the notice of Se-Roi's expulsion. Suwa notices Gunwon's new car as she leaves school, and Gunwon brags about his limited edition car with a special 7777 license plate. He offers her a ride, but she passes. Gunwon asks if she's extra cranky because the orphanage lost Jangga's sponsorship and says that he'll put in a good word with his dad. Suwa rejects his patronizing offer, saying that they won't starve without Jang Jae. Manager Park visits Suwa while she works at the convenience store, and she worries about his termination. She also asks why he paid her school admission fees, and he tells her not to worry about it. Suwa says that Manager Park's son is just as nosy and vows not to live like the duo. Suwa worries that she won't qualify for early admission, but Manager Park believes that she'll make it to college, if not this year, then the next. He says that he's proud of the feisty child that grew up to be a smart student and encourages her to pursue college. Suwa looks touched and promises to repay 3 times the amount he paid. At Jang GA headquarters, Min Young, Manager Park's close colleague, tries to convince President Jang to reinstate Manager Park. She reminds him how long her father and President Jang have known and relied on Manager Park, and she credits him with Jang's success. Demanding silence, President Jang slams his teacup on the table and gives Min Young a stern look. He says that Manager Park defied his orders, and an old dog who doesn't recognize his owner is useless. President Jang justifies his authoritative nature by claiming that all of Jang-ga's decisions, ever since his days of running the overpass Pojamika with Min Young's father, have been the answer. He warns Min Young, who he values like a daughter, not to provoke him further. Suwa boards the bus and realizes that she forgot her wallet at home. Then, she realizes that she's also missing her college interview admission ticket and races back home. Running back toward the bus stop, she passes Se Roi, who follows her and asks about her college interview today. She explains that she forgot her wallet and missed her bus, and the next bus will arrive too late. Se Roi looks at the time and says that she'll be late at this pace. He grabs her backpack and tells her to keep up with him, but Suwa refuses his help. She puts on her backpack and continues to run. Se Roi runs alongside her, being her pacemaker to the interview. Dripping in sweat, Suwa stops to catch her breath, and Se Roi reaches his hand out to help her up. She asks why he's helping her, and he tells her to focus on taking deep breaths. After a few breaths, Suwa gets back to running, pushing away Se Roi's extended hand. Se Roi pushes her forward from behind, despite Suwa's weak attempt to shake him off. Once they reach the building entrance, Se Roi stops and wishes Suwa good luck on her interview. She confidently responds that she'll interview well. Suwa gets called in for the interview, and she smiles as she remembers Se Roi's encouragement. When Suwa finishes the interview, she finds Se Roi waiting in front of the building. He asks how the interview went, and she responds that it went well, thanks to him. She asks why he's waiting, and he hesitates to answer. Just as Suwa walks past him, Se Roi sheepishly asks if he can still use his dad as a reason to be friends with Suwa. She smiles and says that the offer still stands. Suwa asks why Se Roi suddenly wanted to be friends, and he responds that he thinks he may understand why she acted so rudely. He teases her that she's just hot-tempered, and Suwa glares at him. More sincerely, Se Roi notes that Suwa doesn't like to receive or give help. Suwa explains her understanding of sympathy, a sentiment to comfort people who look down on others. Se Roi asks if his dad's actions fit Suwa's definition of sympathy, and Suwa says that dad is different. He asks how, but Suwa doesn't share her reasons. Then, Suwa asks if Se Roi regrets punching Gunwon. She explains that Gunwon was untouchable, even to teachers, so she found it cool that Se Roi did something. Se Roi beams momentarily, and then Suwa cites reality. Se Roi got expelled. She says that she can't live like Se Roi or his dad. Before they head home, Se Roi awkwardly asks if she has a phone. Suwa offers to share her phone number, and Se Roi eagerly hands his phone to her. She says that she's only sharing her phone number because they're friends and warns him that he can't start having feelings for her. He asks why, and Suwa explains that a headstrong person like him will make her life difficult. Se Roi doesn't promise anything and says that you never know what will happen between people. Suwa reaches for his phone to delete her number, but he escapes her grip. Before he leaves, he tells her that she's doing great and that she's really pretty. Then, he runs off, leaving Suwa to revel in the compliments. Se Roi helps Dad set up his new restaurant space and notices that Dad seems elated. Dad explains that he had a dream of opening his own restaurant. As they set up their new space, Se Roi narrates, "My expulsion and Dad's resignation was no big deal. Life went on, as I experienced different emotions. In the new restaurant, Dad, Se Roi, and Suwa share a celebratory first meal. Se Roi continues, even though I was young, I could understand life. I would think about useless things that would make Dad laugh. After closing up shop, Se Roi calls Dad, who rides back on his motorcycle after buying groceries. He promises to be home soon and looks at his family photo as he hangs up. Then, a car hits him from behind, and Dad rolls down the side of the road. His bloody body goes limp on the ground. Se Roi waits for Dad and thinks, as long as we're alive, there would be no issue. Injured Dad reaches for his family photo, calling for his son. His body goes weak, and Dad lets out one last breath as a tear falls down his face. At Dad's memorial service, devastated Se Roi remembers the day that he was expelled from school. He cried and apologized to Dad, and he asked what Dad was thinking. Dad looked at him and assuaged his son's guilt by saying that he saved money he would have spent on a new uniform thanks to Se Roi's first-day expulsion. At the service, Suwa brings Se Roi something to eat. Se Roi doesn't respond to her, and says that he can only remember receiving everything from his father. He took his father's giving nature for granted, and he scolds himself for being so foolish. A police officer interrupts the morning, and he shares that the driver who killed Dad turned himself in this morning. The police officer shares the paperwork and settlement agreement, but Se-Roi is too distraught that they could put a money value to his father's life. He falls to the ground in distress, and Suwa asks the police officer to return at a later time. Suwa picks up the paperwork and recognizes the car in the photo through the 7777 license plate. She tells Se-Roi that the car belongs to Gunwon, and Se-Roi asks that Suwa observe the memorial while he's out. Suwa tries to convince Se-Roi to go to the police first, but she gives up when she sees the look in his eyes. Se-Roi goes to school and searches the classroom. He thinks about how he lost his only family, his father, before he could realize the priceless debt that he owed. He walks through the rain and goes to the hospital looking for Gunwon. He narrates, "That one person was my everything. It broke my heart that he only cared for me, and that's why I worked hard. Dad was reason for my existence." When Se-Roi finds Gunwon, his ex-classmate backpedals and falls to the ground, as if he's guilty. Se-Roi thinks about President Jiang's assertion that one must seek forgiveness for any wrongdoing, and he wonders what they've done after taking his everything. Se-Roi asks Gunwon what he's doing on the ground, and says that his reaction makes his crimes too obvious. Gunwon squirms in Se-Roi's grasp, and Se-Roi doesn't show mercy. He punches Gunwon and asks why he didn't immediately call the hospital. Gunwon begs that they talk this out, and Se-Roi punches him again. As Gunwon desperately crawls away, Se-Roi demands to know why someone else is taking Gunwon's punishment. Se-Roi asks why Gunwon killed his father, and all Gunwon can do is apologize. Se-Roi says that it's too late because the person who should receive the apology is dead, and he tells Gunwon to apologize directly to his dead father. Se-Roi uncontrollably hits Gunwon, willing him dead and almost knocking him unconscious. Then, Se-Roi grabs a nearby rock and approaches Gunwon. He yells at Gunwon to die, and lifts the rock to throw at his father's killer.